pain has a way of folding itself beneath polite greetings. Do you feel the sting of unseen wounds, even while offering practiced smiles? In the pale hush before sunrise, mist drapes the roofs like a soft veil, and that veil becomes an altar where every silent lament can rise unhindered. The ever-present one, whose attentive gaze never blinks, surrounds you with patient mercy, ready to speak healing into fractures no surgeon charts and breathe strength where resolve has thinned. Here, you release the tight schedules awaiting your attention, inhale deeply, and listen for the whisper of compassion that mends. He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. Psalm 147:3. These ancient words promise that nothing inside you is too small or too complex for divine care. Every fracture is eligible for mending. What hidden bruise will you entrust to him this dawn? Which longing will you place beneath his light? Now, as your heart grows still, we step into what morning longs to reveal. You stand at the fragile edge of first light, sensing how the room is calm yet your ribs still echo every unspoken blow. The sting is subtle, more simmer than blaze, but it reaches back to yesterday's abrupt dismissal, last month's diagnosis, even the childhood remark that never fully loosened its grip. Because the wounds remain invisible, you learn to tuck them behind tasks, reply fine, and press forward. Yet the pale birdsong outside your window insists on honesty, and the quiet asks searching questions you cannot outrun. Where does it hurt? Who told you it was too small to matter? Each query opens a shutter, letting dawn examine bruises hidden in interior hallways. You picture the ancient story of Hagar alone in a desert, sobbing beside an empty water skin, stunned when the angel addressed her by name. That narrative reminds you that the Holy One always starts with recognition before remedy. He sees. In the glimmering grey, you sense that same attentive gaze resting on you, not as a judge, but as a physician who knows where bandages belong even before you unwrap the wound. Under that gaze your breathing steadies, for you no longer carry pain alone. You keep track of all my sorrows. You have collected all my tears in your bottle. Psalm 56:8, even silent weeping is archived within heaven's records. Not one drop evaporates beyond divine remembrance. This line assures you that meticulous love, not neglect, chronicles every tremor of your heart. The verse invites a radical exhale, and you respond. Shoulders slope away from armor, hands uncurl, releasing phantom burdens they once gripped for self-defense. Your spine, long braced for impact, eases into a softer curve, as if leaning into unseen arms. You feel the mattress receive your weight without judgment, hinting at the cradle hidden inside divine affection. Tears gather, but do not threaten to drown. They come as evidence that you are still alive and therefore still healable. You remember that Jesus began his public ministry at an unremarkable village wedding, noticing wine jars before anyone else sensed lack. In the same quiet precision, he moves toward the emptiness inside you, refusing to treat it as an inconvenience. Picture him tracing the outlines of each scar, not to reopen the cut, but to anoint it with oil. A faint warmth spreads under the skin, not yet full deliverance, but the promise of it. A down payment of relief that steadies your pulse. Outside, dawn strengthens. Rays creep across the floorboards like gentle fingers of light, and you sense vigor stirring inside muscles that felt hollow. Healing is not always a lightning bolt. More often it arrives as gradual brightness that makes improvised bandages unnecessary. Where resignation once lived, curiosity peeks out. What possibilities could awaken when hurt no longer dictates your pace? You taste a hint of freedom even before chains fully fall. The section closes with invitation. Carry this new honesty into the corridor of the coming hours. When voices ask how you are, imagine answering with words truer than habit. Honesty need not spill graphic details, it simply refuses to deny reality. Because God saw first, you can risk being seen by others. That risk is the seed of future community, sown right here in the hush of morning. You listen to the first rustle of palm leaves outside the window, a whisper that mirrors the faint tremor underneath your ribs. Night has thinned, yet the neighborhood still sleeps, giving you permission to acknowledge what crowds refuse to notice: the subtle sting of disappointment, the dull echo of regrets, the sharp pulse of fresh grief. You resisted naming them yesterday because schedules demanded composure, yet dawn now offers a gentler audience. In this pale interval, you realize secrecy never truly shielded the hurting places, it only muffled their voice. The hush invites honesty, and honesty unlocks the first doorway to relief. And relief, once tasted, invites hope to slip back in on quiet feet. So you begin, not with rehearsed eloquence, but with raw syllables that rise unfiltered from your throat. You tell the holy listener about opportunities lost, apologies withheld, diagnoses looming, and friendships eroded by silence. Each admission feels like drawing splinters from the soul, tiny, almost invisible, yet impossibly irritating. Tears wander down your cheeks, mingling with the breeze drifting through a cracked window, and for once you do not wipe them away, you let them testify. Lemon is not a performance for piety points. It is truth finally speaking its native language. That language needs neither grammar nor polish. It asks only for the courage to cast secrecy aside. Pour out your heart like water before the face of the Lord. So Lamentations 2:19, this midnight instruction to ancient Jerusalem becomes your dawn invitation. Empty every chamber of sorrow until nothing stale remains, because cleared rooms welcome healing light. Honest release is never wasted breath. It becomes soil where renewal will sprout. With every confession you notice subtle shifts. The forehead softens, hands stop clenching, lungs claim fuller breaths. What once felt shameful now appears sacred, because woven through every memory of hurt is the persistent thread of God's nearness. He does not flinch at the jagged edges of your story. He traces them like an artist studying cracks in marble before restoring a statue. You sense he is cataloging each hurt, not for comparison, but for completion, promising that nothing surrendered will remain unresolved. A warmth gathers at your sternum, a quiet preview of wholeness. Healing germinates in this hidden soil long before blossoms appear to outsiders. The sky blushes peach, birds rehearse their first refrains, and creation seems to applaud this transparent communion. You understand that lament is not the destination, but the bridge leading toward the next mercy. Having spoken freely, you are ready for a new conversation. The one where divine eyes meet yours without obstruction, where attentive love studies every contour of the wounds just revealed. Let the final tear fall, then draw a steady breath. Greater tenderness approaches. Soon you will feel the gentle weight of that loving gaze, and know the surgeon already stands beside your bed. You stay seated in the hush as sunrise strengthens, feeling the slow spill of gold across the ceiling like a lantern tipping over the room. In that widening glow, awareness grows that another presence already stands within the stillness, eyes tender, fully awake. No corner of your inner house lies unscanned, neither the shelf where unspoken resentments gather dust nor the attic where old vows shiver beneath cobwebs. The gaze meeting you now is neither intrusive nor casual. It is pure attention, brimming with holy curiosity. Imagine an artist lingering before an unfinished canvas, tracing every brushstroke, seeing flaws and future beauty at once. This is how the eternal perceives you. When others glance past your practiced smile, he studies the tremor behind it. Where acquaintances notice competence, he perceives exhaustion. Being known so deeply feels risky. Yet the kindness shining through that perception disarms fear, coaxing truth to emerge like fawns stepping from thicket. For the eyes of the Lord range throughout the earth to strengthen those whose hearts are fully committed to him. The 2 Chronicles 16:79, the verse reveals roaming vigilance that looks not to accuse, but to reinforce. His sweeping sight carries medicine, not verdict. Knowing you are the focus of that searching kindness breeds courage you could never fabricate alone. With that assurance, you open interior shutters one by one. You show him the place where bitterness crystallized, the room where self-doubt rehearses its lines, the hallway where anxiety paces at night. As each door swings back, light pours in, displacing stale air. Your pulse slows as though your entire being exhales. Nothing shrinks beneath exposure. Instead, wounds breathe, and secret hopes lift their heads, surprised to find the atmosphere hospitable. Suddenly, you perceive that seeing is itself a form of healing. Shame loses leverage when observed with perfect compassion, much the way ice surrenders under steady sun. What once dictated secrecy now becomes subject matter for redemption. You sense a silent vow forming. Every concealed corner of your life will someday be renovated by this relentless gentleness. You respond by meeting his gaze with yours. Though no physical eyes appear, you direct attention upward and inward, mirroring the focus offered to you. In that mutual regard, dialogue transcends words. Your spirit speaks in quiet sighs. His replies arrive as peace irrigating dry ground. You realize surrender in this moment is simply allowing yourself to be fully known. The neighborhood begins to rouse, rooster crow, kettle whistle, yet you remain anchored for another breath, letting the certainty of being seen sink to marrow. When you rise, tasks will still await, but they will no longer serve as camouflage. Instead, they become stages where new confidence can act out the story of a beloved soul. Step forward softly. The gaze will travel with you into every corridor of the day. Carry that awareness like a quiet lamp, illuminating pathways you once walked in guarded silence. You settle deeper into the morning hush, noticing how the breeze carries a fragrance that reminds you of distant pine and newly turned soil. Subtle signals that renewal is underway, though eyes may not yet see it. In that scent you sense the approach of hands unseen but unmistakably present, fingertips brimming with kindness, ready to soothe the fibers of your being that long ago tightened into knots. Those hands do not demand credentials. They require only your permission to rest upon the raw places. You grant it with a quiet breath, and warmth unfurls beneath the sternum, spreading like sunlit water across a winter field. The warmth is neither sentimental nor vague. It moves with careful purpose, tracing every fracture you offered moments ago. Where bitterness had lodged like gravel in tender flesh, you feel an easing, as if weight slips from a hook. Where anxiety had drilled ruts into thought pathways, you detect gentle realignment, as though ancient hands straighten crooked beams inside a temple. You remember the prophet's promise, by his wounds you are healed. So Isaiah 53:5. These words reveal a baffling exchange, flaw for wholeness, suffering for restoration, reminding you that sacred scars transmit medicine deeper than any salve compounded on earth. To embrace such exchange, you need only remain still while grace does its patient work. Remaining still proves oddly active. Muscles twitch with unfamiliar relief. Emotions wobble between tears and laughter. Mind rehearses the possibility that life after pain might be spacious rather than fearful. You picture the woman in the crowd who touched Christ's garment, electricity of mercy rushing through her body before she had time to frame a prayer. Her story affirms that proximity alone releases power, and proximity is yours this dawn. God's presence already wraps you, pressing no bill against your palm, only peace. Outside the window, first rays nick the edge of rooftops, and each beam feels like a bandage of light applied to bruised spirit. You realize recovery often begins microscopically, capillaries mending, attitudes softening, long before limbs sprint or laughter rings in hallways. You choose not to despise the gradual, seedling miracles grow strongest when roots drink deeply from hidden springs. Allow this small beginning its full course. Impatience can reopen incisions, but patience escorts you to completeness. Your task in this moment is simple yet profound. Cooperate with tenderness. When thoughts drift towards self-recrimination, why wasn't I stronger? Gently redirect them to gratitude. I am still here, and restoration has started. When fatigue whispers that healing takes too long, answer with truth. Love is thorough, not hurried. Such responses align heartbeats with the rhythm of divine compassion, ensuring the work continues unstalled. Soon a kettle will whistle, schedules will beckon, and the world will expect performance. But beneath every task, carry this invisible bomb like oil soaked into linen, felt though unseen. Let interactions smell faintly of it. Let decisions be shaped by the ease now settling into marrow. When evening comes, you will trace the day's events and discover subtle proofs, an eruption of patience where irritability once lurked, a willingness to laugh where cynicism ruled. These are early blossoms of the cure now, flowing through you, evidence that holy touch persists long after the sunrise prayer concludes. You sit quietly, noticing that oxygen now enters your lungs without resistance, as though the very air has been widened by mercy. Where slumped shoulders once signaled defeat, an unforced posture begins to rise, spine aligning with dawnlit beams that angle through the curtains. Each inhale carries the softness of early wind. Each exhale releases fragments of fatigue you had accepted as permanent residents. The realization surprises you. Vitality does not always arrive like a trumpet blast. It often tiptoes in on the soles of ordinary breaths, expanding rib cages that had learned to contract against disappointment. Your heartbeat adopts a steady tempo, and in that rhythm you sense the echo of resurrection narratives whispered by creation itself, seeds splitting underground, cicadas pushing through husks, rivers swelling after drought. Those parables unfold outside your window, yet they decode what is occurring within. Dormant capacities awaken, urging limbs to trust their own renewed elasticity. Fingers uncurl, thoughts straighten, eyes sharpen enough to recognize possibilities hiding behind yesterday's fog. Even memory starts cooperating, replaying not the failures, but the moments where endurance quietly triumphed. Proof that grit was growing beneath grief all along. Strength enters not as bravado, but as assurance you belong to a God who never abandons unfinished restorations. Under that assurance, tasks that once loomed like cliff faces now resemble staircases. You envision stepping onto the first riser, sending a heartfelt message you delayed, drinking water before reaching for caffeine, allowing sunlight to kiss your skin before screens command attention. These are modest acts, yet each one drives a new stake into ground once claimed by despair, marking territory for hope to cultivate. Outside, the horizon catches fire with rose and gold, and light pours over clay rooftops like liquid courage. The panorama coaches your soul, keep lifting, keep stretching, keep expecting surprise. You comply by rotating wrists, rolling neck, testing muscles long stiff from defense. No sudden sprint is required, gradual acceleration ensures stamina. You whisper thanks for tendons that obey again, for synapses that fire without static, for the subtle electricity humming beneath your sternum. A current of possibility. Mind drifts to travelers through wilderness sustained by manna, provision enough for each dawn yet never stockpiled. Such daily sourcing teaches reliance rather than hoarding, and you sense your renewal follows the same pattern, fresh vigor for today, more delivered tomorrow. Greed for instant perfection fades, gratitude for incremental progress blossoms. You resolve to measure the hours ahead, not by flawless output, but by evidence of steady rise, an unforced smile, a decision born from courage, a moment when listening triumphs over reaction. Soon responsibilities will knock conversations, deadlines, traffic, perhaps unexpected detours. Yet behind every encounter stands the invisible architecture of newfound resilience. Carry it like hidden scaffolding. Others may not see the beams, but they will notice the stability they grant. If storms gather later, recall this dawn when breath carried medicine and marrow remembered its calling to live. Let that recollection steady your footing until clouds part again. Within you now beats a pulse that knows how to climb, and each ascent becomes an invitation for others still searching for their first foothold in the light. You rise from the quiet sanctuary of your room, sensing the pulse of newly mended sinews. Yet the true test of healing begins not in solitude, but in the corridors where other hearts still limp. The world beyond your threshold hums with hurried footsteps, masked disappointments, and silent emergencies, some remarkably like the wounds that earlier bled within you. Dawnlight now trails behind you like a gentle banner, and you understand its brightness is meant to spill, not simply glow around your own frame. So you step outward deliberately, praying that every motion, word, and glance may extend the same tenderness that washed over your spirit only moments ago. The first encounter arrives quickly, a co-worker whose eyes dart to the floor, voice thin with an anxiety nobody else seems to notice. You listen without mental detours, offering steady presence instead of solutions, and hear a sigh escape their lungs as tension loosens, proof that attentiveness is its own medicine. Further along, a stranger fumbles groceries at the curb. Instinct nudges you to kneel, gathering runaway apples, while speaking a simple, affirming sentence that lands like steadying hands on their shoulders. None of these gestures qualifies for headlines, yet heaven records them as echoes of dawn's mercy reverberating through the day. He comforts us in all our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God. At 2 Corinthians 1:4, the verse unlocks a sacred exchange, pain recycled into balm, sorrow metamorphosed into solidarity, assuring you that nothing healed in private is meant to remain private. Shared relief becomes a living testimony, multiplying hope wherever it travels. As hours unfold, you discover compassion is not depletion. It is circulation. The more kindness flows outward, the more reservoirs within deepen, much like spring-fed pools staying fresh through constant movement. At midday, when fatigue whispers and empathy feels expensive, you pause for a silent breath, recalling the warmth that saturated your chest at sunrise. Memory refreshes vitality, enabling you to re-enter conversations with renewed generosity. Small sacrifices, answering an impatient remark with calm, pausing to pray for an unseen caller on the other end of a tense email, become bricks in an invisible refuge, rising around everyone you meet. Evening shadows eventually lengthen, and you reflect on moments where love overcame reflex irritation. Each instance proves that healed people grow into healers, almost without noticing the transition. The tenderness you received earlier now inhabits your tone, your posture, your very footsteps. You realize compassion forward is not a monumental task added to today's schedule. It is simply the new default rhythm of a heart resurrected from guarded isolation. Such rhythm carries a subtle melody, one that weary souls recognize, drawing them closer to the source behind every note. Before nightfall, you light a small candle in your window, a quiet signal to the street that gentle light still watches over the dark. As the flame flickers, you whisper gratitude for the journey of this single day, hidden wounds exposed, lament voiced, gaze met, balm received, strength awakened, mercy shared. Tomorrow will offer new chapters, yet the template remains steady. Receive, rise, release. Surrender any lingering fear that compassion will exhaust you. Remember, rivers never run dry when they remain connected to their springs. Your spring is eternal, and its current is already flowing into the next dawn. Let the hush of this moment linger like dew on budding leaves. Inhale slowly, noticing how restored breath now carries subtle notes of courage and gentleness. Exhale, releasing any residue of yesterday's ache. Picture someone you may meet today whose silent pain could be eased by a patient smile or quiet prayer. Ask, how can the comfort I received become a doorway for their hope? Trust that even the smallest act rings loudly in heaven's halls. Rest in the certainty that the healer walks beside you, eager to multiply mercy through your ordinary steps.